Hello and Hag Sameach. In this video I'd like to share something that has always bothered me about the holiday of Sukkot, and it actually comes from our unique Syrian Jewish tradition. So Sukkot is well known as Zaman Simchatenu. It's supposed to be, above all other holidays, the holiday of happiness. But what bothers me is the way that we start the holiday of Sukkot. On the first night of Sukkot, the very beginning of the prayers is a mizmor, like many of the other holidays. And the mizmor for Sukkot is chapters 42 and 43 from Tehillim. But these chapters seem to be anything but happy. We talk, for example, about how our soul thirsts for God, this yearning, this bitterness. We don't know when the next time we'll be reunited again is. And we say how our tears were all that we ate day and night, as those around us teased and mocked us, saying, "Where is your God?" And we try to hold on to this hope that one day we'll be able to again greet God and praise Him in the temple. But right now we feel abandoned, left to the mercy of our enemies. As we say, Ki ata Elohei ma'uzi lama zanahtani. My God, my stronghold, why have you forsaken and abandoned me? And after this mizmor, this jarring experience, we need to wonder, why did the rabbis pick this? Why did they think that this would be the great way to get us into the mood of the holiday? We come back to our sukkah, and growing up in Brooklyn, my family, we always had the tradition to bring out the Pizmonim books, turn to page 246, and we'd sing Ma'uzi, a tradition I continue until today. And I know that we weren't the only family that did this, because we used to hear the neighbors singing as well from their sukkot, Ma'uzi. But again, the bitterness, the sadness. It sounds like the words are describing a massacre. We have, for example, our land is given to our enemies who murdered and devoured us. When we say the words Sa'ad al-Shuri v'harag v'taraf. And this is allusion here to two different verses from the story of Yosef, actually. Seemingly we're trying to say we're still suffering the punishment for the sin of the brothers selling Yosef. And then we say, our tears float forth like a river upon the blood of the slain. And we ask, where has our beloved gone? Where is God? And it seems like we don't see him. And again, one's got to wonder, what is going on here? What's with all the sadness and the bitterness? This is supposed to be the happy holiday. And I think that the secret actually lies in the first line of Ma'uzi, which we'll get to soon. But first I want to explore the atmosphere that produced this Pizmon. Chacham Raphael Antebi Tabush wrote the Pizmon. He died over 100 years ago. He lived in Aleppo, Syria. And I try to take myself back to what the Jews of Aleppo must have been feeling after 40 days of saying the Salihot. And then Yom Kippur comes, and again we're praying, we're crying our hearts out to God to bring the redemption. And Na'ilah, the gates of heaven are open, and we say the words, Eloheinu Shabashamayim, Chareb Lanu Chesed Geula, bring close to the end time of redemption. And Eloheinu Shabashamayim, Arsei Imanu Od Tobah, send us at least a sign that you haven't forgotten us. But then, after Yom Kippur, a few days pass, our hopes are high that Sukkot will finally be celebrated this year the way it was intended to be, in Israel and Jerusalem with the temple. But instead, nothing. Seemingly nothing has changed. We're still in the diaspora under the yoke of our enemies, and Israel is just a dream. And that's how the holiday was experienced for Jews in the diaspora year after year for their entire lifetime, generation after generation, for hundreds of years. It seemed like their prayers were simply not answered. And I can imagine the Jews of Aleppo turning to Chacham Raphael Antebi Tabush, their great sage and poet, hoping that he'd be able to lift their spirits for this happiest of holidays. But instead, he looks at them and says, no, I'm sad too. And it's okay to be sad, because this is actually a very sad moment. And he comes to compose a Pizmon, and he uses the word Ma'uzi, which comes straight out of the Mizmor for Sukkot that we mentioned, seemingly as a proof, saying, look, our rabbis tapped into this long ago, that this is a sad moment, when it seems our prayers have not been answered. And in the first line, he uses those words that we said during the Salihot and Yom Kippur, He says, Az kalaketz osbilama, that end time that we prayed for, it must have come already, but still we're forgotten. It's been hundreds of years. How could this be? And that sign for goodness that we prayed for, he's still asking for it in the Pizmon. Armi aseh ot toba benechama, some sign of goodness and consolation, but there is none. And a lot has changed since this Pizmon was composed. And I think that when we sing it, we should think about the feelings that our ancestors must have had, how they experienced this disappointment at the beginning of the holiday. But now we must be able to safely say that we have gotten that sign of goodness, finally, that God has not forgotten us, because we have had the birth of the State of Israel and the miracles of 1948 and 1967. And while the redemption is not complete, and many of us still are in the diaspora and we don't have everything that we've asked for, when we say in the end of the Pizmon, Ana halachtu di, where is God? I think that now he has finally shown himself to us, and we can no longer ask where he is. He's shown that he is with us, he's revealed his miracles, and instead I think we need to ask ourselves, where are we? And what steps can we take? What can we do to be reunited with our beloved, with God, in our ancient home, the land of Israel? And I think that if we take those steps to be reunited in Israel, then we can merit to have the full redemption and to fulfill the words that we close the Pizmon with, to rejoice together with God 3 times a year. Bo esmach shalosh pa'amim bashana.